So we're going to build this simple game here, so that a user will keep guessing a number. So maybe like 8, then 7, then if the user gets to guess the set number, then we print you win. Then or else then maybe like you lost. So we are going to implement this in actually the while loop or the do while loop. So we are going to first start with actually like the while loop. So what you're going to do here is we're going to start with the guess number. So let's say you have a guess number here, then assign it to maybe like 5. So again, let's give this one to an integer. We have, let's say our user will only like guess integers. So what we have to do now is we have to get the user input. So like while which condition is true. So let's say we have our integer here, that's the case number. So we're going to have another integer for our user. So integer maybe like user guess. Then we're going to tell the user to keep entering the number. So while this condition, so the condition that we are trying to set here is while the user guess is actually not equal to the guess number, then we'll keep telling the user to keep entering the number. So what we do here is we're going to say while. So remember we talked about this not equal to. So we're going to implement them with this. So what we are trying to do here is, so the first operation will actually like keep to actually tell us if the condition is true. So we are trying to say, well, the user guess. So you just come here and say user guess is not equal to, that's the guess number. Then opening and closing curly brackets, then we want to tell our user to keep entering maybe like guess a number. So let's do this. Is actually in each and every time a user tries that in a new line. So if actually this is the guess, if the user guesses the right number, then we want to tell the user like, hey, you won. So if that is not true, so while that condition is now met, then we want to tell the user to now that you won, and some exclamations over there. So make sure you enter in a new line. So if you now run this, let's see what will actually be printed. So enter a guess number. Again, we are following into actually like another infinite loop. So let's correct what happened. So this is actually like the condition that we actually set. So we are trying to say here, well, the user guess is not equal to this, then keep entering in. So once the user has entered the value, then we can now see in the user guess. So user guess here. So what we didn't like actually understand it very well here is you don't actually have to cause maybe like what we call the infinite loop using only like an increment or decrement operator, the plus plus or the minus one. So again, what will actually like make your code not to run is maybe a failure of you to enter the input, because it will always be true for that condition. So let's run it. Now enter a guess. So guess 3, then it's over guess 0, 7, 9. So you can actually like keep guessing until you get to actually win a number. So unfortunately or fortunately, I was able to guess the right number. So what happens if I am not able to guess the right number? So let's say I keep now guessing different numbers. So it will always ask me to enter the number until that condition is true. But for gaming, of course, you know this won't be valid. So for that, I want you to figure out how we are going to make sure that we implement this. We say that the user will only guess maybe 3 times. Then we get you lose or you win in case the attempts are the user actually runs out of attempts. So figure that out, then we'll meet again in the solution. So the solution was actually like very simple. So what I wanted you to do was figuring out how you could use conditional operators. So the first thing we want to introduce here among these other variables. So we have our guess number. So the next thing actually we would want to introduce is actually the maximum. So int. So let's say max guess. So let's set it to actually like, let our user guess 4 times. Then the next thing we'd want to actually do is having maybe the number of attempts, so that we can track the number of atoms. So number of atoms. So let's just use this for now. Number of atoms, then it will always start at 0. Then we'll keep now incrementing this value each and every time. So we're going to improve now our value here and our condition here, so that we can now add in more of operators here. So we have that while the user guess is not equal to user name, and we want to make sure that the user is not out of guesses. So and the user is not out of maybe like atoms. So to do that, let's actually create a simple boolean here. So let's say boolean out of atoms, and let's assign it to a false state at the start. So, and if this condition is actually true and the user is not out, maybe like out of atoms, I hope I've correctly spelled that, then we can now keep asking our user to keep guessing now the number. So we're going to now have again to increment this value. So what we're going to now do again is we want to like check for another condition, because this will again always keep asking for the user input. So if you now run this, let's see what will happen. So I guess a number 3, that's 3. You see now that I'm still able to guess without a limit. So because we didn't specify the condition here, so we want to use an if else to make sure that the number of atoms is not actually the maximum. So we're going to say here, say if the number of atoms is less than the maximum guess, so the max guess here, then what we want to do here is we want to now like bring this into now our for loop. So we pasted that here, so a tab here for indentation. So what we are now doing here is we're asking our user to make sure that if the number of atoms is less than this, then we now tell the user like you win. So let's run this code and see what will happen. So guessing a number 1, 2, 3, 4. Now I keep on still guessing. Why? Because we are not incrementing this value here, then the number of atoms. So we have to actually like increase the number of atoms after we have already received the user input. So we're going to say number of attempt plus plus. So let's see what we will going to happen. So we're actually trying to add one line after another, trying to understand what's happening behind the scenes. So I'm out of loop and nothing is happening. So this means that the number of guesses here, so I guess for the first time, second, third, fourth, and I'm out of loop. So nothing is actually like getting printed because we have not specified. So to that point, we have already known that now our number of atoms is actually working. So what we are going to now do after this is, now if that condition is being met, then we are going to like now say the winner like, hey, you win. Else, if that's not the true, then we're going to set him out of atoms. So out of atoms, then we now set it to have a true value. So this means now that the user is out of the number of guesses, and by that, this means that already you've lost. So let's see what is going to happen. So let's run again. So it's saying that it's not declared, so I'm just going to copy this, so that's gonna be easier for me instead of typing it all. So that's why I encourage having short variables. So I'm going to run it, keep guessing a number. Now it says you win because we are now out of this loop. So this means that now we already won. So we have to now close this again into a certain condition, so that instead of telling a user that we won, but here the user lost, then we can now nest another if statement here. So we're going to say if out of attempt. So now if you run out of attempts, then we're going to tell the user that now you lost. So we're going to say you lost, then end that. Else, if the user got the right number before he ran out of the guesses, then we're going to tell the user actually like you won. Okay, cool. So let's now run the program and see if we are now working according to the limit here. So I'm just going to close this one and bring in my operator here. So I'm going to guess a number 2, 3, 6, 8. You lost. Now it's working according to the number of attempts we are doing. So let's try and guess a right number. So I'm going to like bring this here. So, and then again, I'm going to like explain it. So from the first step, what we are trying to do here is we are trying to tell the user enter a number, and then we're storing that number in our computer memory space. So then we are incrementing the number of attempts from 0 each time it goes. Then if the user is out of loop, then we print we set now the out of loop to true. And if you are out of loop, that means you've lost. And if still within the number of guesses, that means you won. So let's try 2, 3, and then I tried to guess the right number 5. Now you see that you won. So that was basically a simple and implementation understanding of the for loop. So from this place, so let's say the first thing you have to do is always declare your values and variables and initialize them. So then we were here doing the while loop. So this is the entire while loop. So while the number of guesses is not equal to the guess number, and the user is still within the loop, then keep asking the user. So then again, if we are still asking the user, then we want to also check that the number of attempts is less than the number of the maximum guess. Then enter the number, and then make sure you always increment or decrement a value depending on your condition. And then else we set the out of range out of values to be true. So that means once it's true, then this is false, and because this is false, then we exit the loop and then print out to the user you lost.